In today's video, we're going to be exploring a brand new listing of mine here in Kitsilano. It's in the building right in behind me. Now from the outside, yes, it looks a little bit nondescript, but trust me when I say you're going to be blown away with what's on the inside. It is so impressive. But what's more important are the lessons that we can garner from this listing. So as always, I'm going to take you on a tour, and then we're going to talk about some of the takeaways that we can take from this listing on our understanding of Vancouver's real estate market. Whether you live here already or you're thinking of moving here from somewhere else, this is a video you're not going to want to miss. Let's get into it right now. My name is Sebastian Albrecht with the Living in Vancouver BC team, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this channel is all about living in and moving to Vancouver. This week, we're exploring one of my newest listings here in Kitsilano. It's a one-bedroom condo. It's really nondescript on the outside. I mean, you got to see the outside of this building. It's not all that impressive, but there is so much that is incredibly impressive about this listing, about this particular property, and I'm really excited to be sharing it with you. You're going to want to check it out. As always, I'm going to take you on a tour of this listing, but I'm also going to explore Vancouver's real estate market and teach everyone, including myself, remind myself of some of the lessons we can take away from Vancouver's real estate market based on this particular listing. So let's get inside and take a quick tour of exactly what this is like. But before we do that, I gotta say, right where I'm standing, I'm looking. One of the best features of this listing is really what's right in behind me, and that's the view. Kit's Pool is right there. I can see it. You can find out just how busy Kit's Pool is from your own balcony here. You can see downtown Vancouver in behind me. You can see English Bay there, and you can see the North Shore Mountains in behind me as well. So this particular location is probably the best single feature of this entire listing, but the listing in general is impressive. So what we have here is 575 square feet. We're on the third floor in this building. That is the top floor. Now this building is built in 1970. So what you see around me certainly isn't from 1970. In fact, it's from 2021. Just before my clients purchased, the previous owner did a complete gut job of this condo, and it is impressive. This is what my clients fell in love with. Aside from the location, they really fell in love with the quality of the renovation in this space. I mean, this kind of renovation is not normal in Vancouver. I'm going to get into more of that a little bit later on when we talk about some of the lessons. But you enter right over here from the hallway. You enter a little bit of a hallway right there. I like that little space between your entrance and sort of the living space. So the rest can be a little bit cluttered if somebody comes to your door. And you have this gorgeous modern open kitchen with a fantastic little feature right here, a skylight. Because when you're north facing in Vancouver, many people worry about the light that they're going to get. And they're in this particular space, because of that skylight and also because of all the pot lights they put in, you get actually quite a lot of light in this space. But this is one gorgeous kitchen. You got some modern appliances, all stainless steel. You have tons and tons of storage. And this stuff is wood. This is plywood, maple, I believe, interior. So often it's just compressed wood, kind of cheap. That is not what you're gonna find here. You also have Caesar stone countertops. You have a nice deep sink here as well. And you have what not so many of these older buildings have is you have a dishwasher as well as in-suite laundry. So those are features we're going to talk about a little more. And then going just in behind me here, this is the single bath, and you have everything that you need in here. One thing I really like is that big tall shower. I had somebody looking at this place the other day, and they were looking for their client who was 6'5". I'm 6'3", and I can see that that shower, you can get that way up there. It's something that not a lot of people think of. So many people are a little bit shorter, but that is a feature somebody who's taller is really going to enjoy. And then in behind the door here, you see the in-suite laundry. Another really important feature when you're looking for condos in general, but specifically here in Kitsilano. And then you have your entrance closet right here. Another thing so many places leave out, the person who did this renovation was really mindful, very smart planning. And here we have an incredibly spacious bedroom. And this kind of size of bedroom is not something you're going to see in a more modern condo. In a newer building, this is going to be a lot smaller. This is going to be more like 10 by 10 instead of 14 by 12. And so this space, I mean, you have tons of room for nightstands on either side. You even have room for a dresser over here or a dresser against the wall, or maybe even a desk. So there's tons of space. And then really good closet space here as well and behind me. And they did, as I said, a complete gut job. Oh, I gotta say, and one more thing that I really like here is that when you're lying in bed, you have a gorgeous view of downtown. You can catch the water if you sit up in bed. And that's something, you know, I gotta say I've said that too often, haven't I? In my experience, that's pretty rare. I don't have a view from my bedroom. The view from my bedroom, I don't know, it's the mess we have in the backyard. The kids play stuff. You do have a dining space. You have some extra under cabinet storage there, on cabinet, dining room right here. And then you have your space for your living space, big couch here. And right there, they've done some built-in wiring for television, which is really smart. And outside, something that, you know, where I was standing originally, that's where we're gonna find the balcony. And the balcony runs from one length of the unit to the other. So tons of space out there, really nice seating, great spot for a barbecue, a nice spot to watch the fireworks. There is so much going for this condo. I really, really am impressed. I love it. If I was single, if I didn't have 4 kids, this would be the kind of space that I would be looking to live in today. On top of how good this renovation is, this is also a really solid building, which is another thing we're going to talk about. But this building is really well maintained, has done a lot of upgrades over the years. Being now 54 years old, you know, it's like an old car. It needs to be taken to the mechanic. Stuff needs to be replaced. So they've done the roof, they've done the windows, they did some work on the elevator. There's a lot of things that have been taken care of here that you don't really need to worry about. And this strata is excellent, very strong. It was another one of those things that my clients, when they purchased here, were really attracted to. The feeling that this strata was much stronger than most. And that's something in this particular area you really need to be cautious of. And you can get, you know, cheaper places, but they're probably not going to be in as good of buildings. They're not going to be in as high quality renovations, and they're not going to have the view. So because of the quality of the building, because of the quality of the renovation, and because of the view, the price is where we have it, just shy of $700,000. It's $699. But let's get into some of the lessons about Vancouver real estate that we can take away from this particular listing. So now on to the lessons. And there's a few of them. I find these really, really interesting. Number one would be in-suite laundry. So this building is built in 1970. Most buildings of this era would not have come with in-suite laundry. That was a time where that was a luxury. And they made the assumption that people that bought into condos didn't want in-suite laundry, or that would have made it too expensive. So almost no buildings from that era came with in-suite laundry. They would all, in Vancouver, have a shared laundry room, like this building has. But what's happened in the last 20, 30 years is that so many people who have bought condos, they want in-suite laundry. And so the buildings that don't have in-suite laundry sort of lag behind on price. Without in-suite laundry, you're not paying as much as you would be paying with in-suite laundry. And primarily first-time buyers, you can imagine, they're buying their first property, they're moving out of a basement suite, or they're moving out of an apartment building, and they've been sharing laundry for years and years and years. Feeling for them is that they want to have in-suite laundry. So when they buy, that's one of the highest prerequisites that I find for first-time buyers is having in-suite laundry. So the person who used to own this property, the person who did this renovation, knew that, and they made sure when they did this renovation that they included in-suite laundry. So many of the buildings built before the early 1980s would be shared laundry, but just about any building built after that era in Vancouver will have in-suite laundry. But some of those older buildings will allow the installation of in-suite laundry. It's not a guarantee, and that's something that you want to be aware of when you're looking at properties in Vancouver. If you find a place that doesn't have in-suite laundry and you're like, that's fine, I'll install it myself, just note that might not be possible. There's a couple reasons for that. One, the plumbing system may not be able to handle having in-suite laundry in all the suites. Might not have been designed for it. And if it hasn't been upgraded, made ready for in-suite laundry in every suite, they may not allow it. And then the other thing is that almost every single strata is going to be weary of penetrating the exterior membrane of the building. And so they're not going to want a venting dryer. So many buildings will allow in-suite laundry, but they won't allow the type of laundry that is vented, our sort of conventional North American laundry. And this is a building like that. They do allow laundry. This particular suite was granted permission to install in-suite laundry, but they were not allowed to put in typical venting dryer. They had to put in a European model that condenses the moisture back into water and then pushes it out into a drain. So that is the system that we have. But the fantastic thing for the buyer and the owner of this suite is that you have a relatively affordable place with in-suite laundry, and you don't have to be using shared laundry. So a big bonus and a lesson that you can learn about other properties in Vancouver from this particular listing. Another reason that this particular listing is so fantastic is the fact that it's top floor. Now, in my experience, when you're in a wood frame building, as so many of the condos in Kitsilano specifically are, and honestly, most of Vancouver outside of downtown Vancouver, we are a city of sort of those 4 to 6 story condominium buildings outside of the downtown core for the most part. And with the exception of so much of the development that's happening in the suburbs is also much higher density and big condo towers, concrete towers. But the older stock is primarily wood frame construction. And so often I find people who have lived in an apartment building or have lived in a condo before really prioritize being on the top floor. And the reason for that is they've been scarred by living below somebody else. One of the best things about living on the top floor is you don't have to worry about the noise from above. In this particular case, you also get the benefit of that skylight in the back. It also opens up things a little bit. When you have units above you and balconies in particular, it sort of closes you in and makes things a little bit darker. But people really do prioritize being on the top floor. So in wood frame buildings, I'd say the most sought after floor plan is always on the top floor, the ones that are gonna go for the most amount of money and be easiest to sell. The ground floor goes second. And the reason for that is on the ground floor, personally, I love ground floor because you get usually extra added bonus outdoor space. And it can kind of feel like a townhouse. You can come and go out of that front door in a way that you can't, when you're on every other floor, you have to go through the hallway, down the elevator, and out the front door. So often when you're on the ground floor, you get added bonus outdoor space. And quite often, not always, but quite often also the ability to come and go out of your own front door. That is appealing to a lot of people, but not to everyone. And there are a lot of people, in particular single women, and in particular people that are or purchasing for young women. So perhaps if your parents purchasing for your daughter going to university or something, you may not feel comfortable with them living on the ground floor. And so for that reason, the ground floor isn't as desirable as the top floor. But the people who really want the ground floor are willing to pay a bonus for that added outdoor space. Now, every other floor in between kind of comes somewhere in the middle. Obviously, like if there is a view, the higher you are, there is some benefit to being higher. But if there's no difference between the second floor and the third floor, then those prices can be very, very similar. And the desirability of them can be similar as well. Now, the other great thing here is the water view. And depending on where you are in Vancouver, it can be more or less important. But I would say in Kitsilano, it is one of the things that everybody really wants. They want to be able to see the water. Otherwise, why are you living in Kitsilano, right? It is one of the immense benefits of living here. So when you are in Kitsilano or in Point Grey, whether you're able to see the water, as you can see in behind me, I'm not gonna point in that direction too much because my camera's not great. But in behind me, right over there is Kit's Pool, Kit's Beach. It's downtown, it's the North Shore Mountains, and you can sit on your balcony and see that view. And that is something that people are willing to pay a premium for. No view, if you're just staring at the back of another building, those types of things, there's no bonus for that. But there is a premium that is paid for the ability to see the ocean in a spot like Kitsilano in particular. And I've mentioned this before, but in my experience, Kitsilano and the West End are two places that people that are coming to Vancouver from other places are really, really interested in moving to. And if you're not moving to one of the suburbs and you're a little bit younger, this is one of those places that you're targeting to be in Vancouver. Otherwise, why would you move to Vancouver, right? This is the place where you're in the middle of everything. You're so close to downtown. You have the ocean at your doorstep. You can see the mountains. You can get up in the mountains easily. And so quite often, the people who are in that position also want to be able to see the ocean. There's many Vancouverites that actually never come down here, and I'm always shocked by it. In fact, I remember this first struck me back in my 20s when I had a girlfriend whose parents sort of lived around 41st and Knight, and they had never been to the ocean in Vancouver. They had never left their neighborhood. And that is the way many Vancouverites live, because we are a city of neighborhoods and because our neighborhoods are so self-sufficient. We don't need to leave our neighborhoods. We can have our jobs, we can go to the bank, we can get groceries. For people that really want to, experience the city, they're gonna target very specific neighborhoods in general. And two of the ones that are top of the list for most people are gonna be the West End and Kitsilano. Almost everybody that moves to Vancouver from somewhere else at least has those two neighborhoods sort of at the top of their mind and on their wish list. They might not end up here, but they're sure thinking about it. If you are thinking of moving to Vancouver and thinking of purchasing a home, don't forget that I am a real estate agent that's helped hundreds of families move to Vancouver. Whether you end up moving to Kitsilano or somewhere else, if you need some help finding the right neighborhood and the right home, I can help you. Reach out anytime. My contact information is right there on the screen. Let's get back to the video. Another big thing that kind of leads from what we were just talking about is the value of the location. We can be 10 kilometers further east from here, and you're gonna find prices for a similar type of product would be substantially lower. One of the big reasons that the price is as solid as it is in this neighborhood, and I'm gonna talk about what the market is like, but Kitsilano really does hold its value because this is so central, because this is so desirable. Now I showed you what the view is like, sort of some of the benefits. This is one of those incredibly walkable neighborhoods. It's not just the definitive Vancouver neighborhood, but it's an incredibly convenient neighborhood. You can walk to the beach, you can just walk up to the hill to fantastic restaurants, to great shopping, to great cafes. In fact, just a couple blocks away, there's a little center on, is it U? It's on U. York and U is kind of the center of it, but there's a few little restaurants just a couple blocks in that direction, a local pub right on the corner. There's a couple coffee shops if you don't want to walk up the hill up to 4th. And like I keep saying, you have the beach right at your doorstep. This killer location has value. This is desirable. This is where people want to be. Whether you're moving here from somewhere else, as I was talking about before, or you already live in Vancouver, this is one of the spots that everybody really wants to be, especially in the summer months. Now let's talk about renovation. And I've shown you the kind of quality of renovation that this place has. And this is something that really stuck out to myself when I was helping my clients, and stuck out to my clients as well, about the quality of renovation. And in fact, we learned after closing the deal on this property that the owner was losing money. He, between what he paid for it and what he put into this renovation, it was less than what my clients ended up paying for this property. And in fact, it's still less than what they're asking right now. So this is the kind of quality of renovation that you don't commonly see. This is the kind of renovation that people do if they're planning on keeping a property for a very long time. Something that you do for yourself, not to flip a property. And so often you could call it lipstick on a pig. I remember buying a property many, many years ago. It was in fact, I think, one of my first properties that I purchased for myself. That was a townhouse unit. The previous owners, it had been rented, and they did a really quick renovation. They slapped some paint. It was like this awful yellow, like a very pale blah yellow. And then they did some really cheap laminate floors. I lived with that because it was just done. Now, it wasn't incredibly expensive. I mean, I swear that laminate floor probably cost about 70 cents a square foot. I could have torn it down and not felt so bad about it, but I did. It was the environmentally conscious part of me. But I ended up living with that for many, many years. But I would have loved if they just left it original. I didn't really want to pay for the renovation that they did. I would have liked to have just done a renovation that I wanted and that I would have been happy with. This is the kind of renovation that just about anybody will love. I mean, these floors are gorgeous. This space feels big and inviting and bright. These pot lights are great. The quality of the appliances, the size of the kitchen, the in-suite laundry, everything that we have here is quality. And not only is it quality, but most importantly, it's also a permitted renovation. So many renovations in Vancouver, so many of the renovations that we come across, not as much in condos, I do have to admit, but so many renovations are sort of trying to get by. The difficulty with the city in particular is the length of time that the permitting process takes. Not so much the cost, but these days it is becoming a little more the cost involved as well. But so many people just want to get the renovation done, and they're kind of tired of waiting for all the red tape that they have to get through the city. The city is doing their best to try and expedite. They're trying to make things much more efficient, and they are making it more efficient for condos in particular, which is great. But this is one of those rare cases where this is a down to the studs renovation. It is not just a coat of paint on a pig, lipstick on a pig, I should say. It is basically everything, like the drywall in here. This was everything, all the wiring, the plumbing, the appliances, the floor, the baseboards, everything that you see behind me was done new. Even the doors were taken off, and solid core doors were put on, which is something almost nobody does. In fact, I did a renovation on my own home, and my contractor advised me not to bother putting solid core doors on. I was like, no, I love solid core doors. So what if the door costs me an extra $100? That to me is well worth it. It feels solid, it feels good, and it's a little more of a sound barrier as well. So they didn't spare any expense here. They went through all the right regulations, permitting process. And so anybody who purchases here can really feel confident in not only the quality, but the fact that this will withstand the test of time. And if you find a property that work has been done, but they haven't gone through the proper hoops, you're taking on a lot of risk. So there is more value in a renovation like this one, not only because of the quality, but also because they got the permits and they got the approval from the strata. Another big thing when you're looking at condos, and I've talked about this in a couple of videos. In fact, I'm gonna put, I don't remember which corner it is, I think it's that one, a link to my video all about some of the mistakes people make when purchasing condos. But one of the big ones is buying into a bad building and getting too taken over by the way that the inside looks. Now, that could have happened here, but my clients were working with me, and of course, also just being intelligent buyers, they knew they needed to buy into a good building as well. Now, this building's a little bit older. It's built in 1970, but it's had a lot of work done. This is one of those buildings that is very well taken care of. It's sort of a boutique building, just 23 units. But in recent years, they've been doing a great job in looking under the hood, not deferring maintenance, and doing the things that they need to do. In the very recent years, they replaced, tapping on the sliding door here, but they replaced the windows and the doors. They redid the interior hallways, brand new carpeting. They redid the front entranceway. They've redone the roof, and they've modernized the elevator. It's a fairly simple building. It's not super complex. It's not huge, but they're taking care of things as they go. They have a depreciation report that was done in 2020. Pretty new, just 4 years old, but they're already talking about doing another one in 2025. So they are on top of things. The depreciation report doesn't have anything sort of impending. Any buyer that buys into this property is going to feel very confident that the building will be an asset for them and not a liability. And that's something that I warn so many buyers about. So in this particular case, one of the things that we can learn from this is adding value to this property and not taking away from it. Parking and storage are things that are really critical when you live in a smaller space. And not every condo will come with one or both of those things. So in this particular case, you get both a decent parking space, and you also get a decent sized storage locker. I don't always find that storage is an absolute requirement, because generally if there's no storage locker, usually the developer has put some kind of storage room in the suite, and there are benefits to having storage in your suite. For one, it's going to be safer. It's never going to get wet or stolen. It's going to be a lot easier to put things in and out of it. The downside is you're basically paying for it, because as we all know, to some extent or another, we do price basically on a per square foot basis. And if your storage is in your suite, well, then you are paying for it. If it's external to your suite, it's not included in the transaction cost in the way that we are analyzing the price of the condominium. Now, that might be different if some units in the same building have storage and some don't. It may impact your ability to sell faster or slower. It could sort of impact the transaction in one way or another. But generally, if it's an external storage locker, most of the time you're not really paying additionally for it, unless you're also buying from a developer. Because these days, quite often, sort of the listed price that the developer will have when you're buying a new condo won't include not only storage, but quite often parking. And quite often those two things, especially whether it's a studio or a one bedroom, could be in addition to those costs. So if you're buying new, make sure you're paying really close attention to it. But if you are looking at older buildings like this one, for the most part, you are going to find that parking is included. Storage, some of those older buildings didn't include storage, but more often than not, you are going to find storage. I've said it in other videos about mistakes in buying condos, but you do want to check out parking and storage. Make sure that you get an idea of how big they are, whether your car is going to be able to fit, whether it's really low in the underground parkade or not. In this particular building, they're both decent size. It's a relatively small building, so no parking stall is really going to be in a bad location. But things to keep in mind and lessons you want to take away from this particular listing and apply it to other properties in Vancouver. So another thing when you're looking at condos, you're going to be paying attention to what the bylaws are and some of these rules and regulations that you're going to have to live with. All the owners have decided together on these regulations, on these bylaws. In this particular case, this particular strata has a bylaw that says no pets are allowed. Whether it's a budgie or a cat or a dog, you're not going to be allowed to have a pet. In my view, that's a little bit unfortunate. It impacts your ability to sell. When you're trying to sell a property, you want as broad of a market as you possibly can have. And what you're doing by having a bylaw like that in place is you're really restricting the potential pool of buyers. And so many people today, especially young buyers that are buying their first home, sort of one of the things they want, aside from in-suite laundry, is the possibility of being able to have a pet. You know, down the road, they might not want it right now. They might not have one right now. Probably haven't been allowed to have one when they were renting. But once they're in their own place, they want to have that freedom. And so in my view, it's a little bit short-sighted of a bylaw to have. And often that's one of the things that I would encourage all stratas to consider. There is the impact that you have on what it's like for you to live there. And by all means, you should have a right to restrict, have bylaws in place that allow you to sort of create the culture that you want in the strata that you own in. But I think you do want to keep in mind how it impacts your ability to sell down the road. And in this case, I would say that that is a bit of a detractor for a lot of buyers. Now, it's going to sell anyways, and there's going to be plenty of people who love this space because of all the great things that it has going for it. But it would be even better if they allowed pets. But in particular, not just cats, but also dogs. Both should be allowed, in my opinion. Otherwise, it is a bit of a negative. It is a bit of something that hangs over a strata and impacts your ability to sell your property down the road. So one more thing that we can take away from this is to talk about the market a little bit. And I would say, in general, the market has been weaker. I mean, that's no secret. But it really does depend on what you're looking at and what you're purchasing. And this is where this particular listing teaches us a really great lesson, because all of the headlines are about how limited the market is, how overabundant the amount of listings are, and the pressure that we're likely going to see on prices. This is not the case in Kitsilano for condos. We can look at the data. I was looking at it this morning. I've looked at it to help my clients decide on the pricing here. But peak pricing for much of the market was almost 2 years ago. Peak pricing for Kitsilano, prices actually continued to rise until just a couple months ago. And we are just only about 1% off of peak pricing in Kitsilano. So as I was saying, sort of being in a central area, being in a highly desirable area that has so much going for it, really make sure that prices don't get impacted. There's not the same downward pressure on prices in an area like Kitsilano for this kind of product as it can be in other parts of the market. Now, this is also specific to condos in particular in Kitsilano, something that's a little more affordable. Kitsilano houses have definitely seen more of a downward trajectory, a little more downward pressure. But condos in particular have been super strong. And in a market at the moment, we're really in a buyer's market for condos in Vancouver in general. But here in Kitsilano, it is still very much a seller's market. 3.5 out of every 10 listings are selling. Very, very strong. While in the rest of Vancouver, it's just 1.5 listings out of every 10 that are selling. And I think I did mention already that peak pricing was just back in June here. Peak pricing was $782,000 in June of 2024, and right now it's $774,500. So that's slightly over a 1% decline, but very, very close. But my clients are going to do really well with this property, and the new buyer is going to do really well with this as well, because it's an incredibly solid building, an incredibly solid product, very rentable, good value, and it's going to hold its value, as we can see based on these numbers. Well, there's your whirlwind tour of Kitsilano condo. I hope you enjoyed that. Just one bedroom. It was a pretty quick tour, But I feel like there was tons of good lessons here, lots of information about Vancouver's real estate market and takeaways that we can take out of this condo and apply to all of Vancouver. Whether you're moving here from somewhere else or live in Vancouver and just curious about what the market is like and what it's like to live in other parts of Vancouver. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button, smash the subscribe button to see more videos just like this one. I put out videos like this about living in and moving to Vancouver every single week. This week was all about this 1-bedroom condo in Kitsilano. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next week, but I really do hope that you're going to come along for the ride. I do have a couple videos that I think you're really going to enjoy. I did this video a little while ago about a house in Kits, a double lot that I sold. Similar style to this video that I think you might really enjoy. And then this video over here is all about the living costs of living in Vancouver. Be sure to check out those two videos. Hopefully I'll see you on next week's video as well.